Ava Roslin stood among the fractured shadows of Cradle Station, her breath ghosting through the rebreather as she stared down at Earth, or what was left of it. A scarred, half-dead marble adrift in a poisoned atmosphere, Earth barely turned anymore. Most of the oceans were gone, siphoned centuries ago during the Siege of Harvest by the Kareth Dominion. The sky had been burned out in the solar collapse. Cities were cinders, continents fractured. Yet still it glowed. Still, it tried to live. Much like her. Cradle was one of the last human habitable strongholds in the Soul Graveyard. It spun in silence, forgotten by most, haunted by many. Its walls were patched with scrap, its systems outdated by centuries. But inside, deep in the carbon-stained halls of the command vault, something impossible stirred. A signal. It pulsed. Through long-dead frequency bands. Analog, ancient, human. This is Arcanus Prime. Mayday. This is Arcanus Prime. We are under siege by the hegemony. Civilian losses catastrophic. Repeat. We call on Earth. Humanity's cradle. For rescue. If anyone still lives, please answer. The voice cracked through static. A language distorted by time, unmistakably human. A whisper from beyond the stars. A cry for help. Ava lowered the headset slowly. Around her, the operators stared. One held a shaking hand to his mouth. The others were frozen. No one's called on Earth in 200 years, whispered Rourke, her second in command. His voice was raw. No one's dared, Ava answered. Not since the fall. She turned toward the war room's ancient holodable, still flickering with blue projections of burnt-out systems. She tapped coordinates. Arcanus Prime lit up, a faint pulse in the far western rim. Too far, too deep in enemy space. Is this a trap? Rourke asked. Maybe. She stared at the signal again. The voice. Male. Fractured, but human. Full of desperation and belief. He thought someone would answer. We're not a rescue fleet, Rourke said quietly. We're barely a fleet at all. But Ava's eyes had gone hard. The kind of hard that forms under loss, betrayal, and the unbearable weight of survival. She hadn't always been commander. She used to be a child who watched Kareth plasma cut through her family's evac shuttle like paper, who crawled through the ash of New Thessalonica's ruins with a broken cum and a useless prayer. Earth didn't answer then. Now it would. Prep the Vindicators, she said. Rourke blinked. The whole fleet? We don't go small, she said. We go loud. But Arcanus is on the edge of hegemony space. If we move the Dominion, we'll see. Let them. A pause. The room stood still. Then Rourke gave a slow nod. Aye, Commander. In the hangar bay, the fleet groaned to life. The Vindicator fleet. 5 dreadnoughts, 16 gunmetal escorts, and the surviving hulk of the Mistral's wake was not pretty. It was old Earth steel, dented and scorched, patched with alien tech and vengeance, but it was alive and angry. Each vessel bore the scars of a dozen battles. Each crew was born of loss, orphans, exiles, ghosts from failed colonies, forgotten wars, and above them all, Ava Roslin, the last commander to swear Earth would never again be silent. As the fleet powered up, Ava entered her private chamber. There, beneath dim lights and rusted medallions, sat a single cryo case. She opened it. Inside was a letter, unsent, to her brother, the one who never made it out of Thessalonica. She never stopped writing him, never stopped imagining he could read it. Today's letter was short. We're answering a call, Kalen. The first. In a lifetime, I'm scared. But if they believe Earth still means something, maybe we should too. She sealed the letter, tucked it back, and turned to the bridge. As the Vindicator fleet breached the edge of the Sol system, the old station, shuddered behind them. Earth, that haunted jewel, blinked out of view, and the stars loomed ahead like gods. Ava Roslin's voice rang through the fleet. This is not a rescue mission. This is remembrance. This is for every world that called for help and heard. Nothing. We are the silence, broken. We are Earth, returned. Somewhere in the galaxy, Arcanus still burned. And for the first time in centuries, humanity was on the move. By the time the fleet reached Arcanus, the skies were already bleeding. They pierced the rim of hegemony space with weapons charged and shields cold, drifting in blackout silence through dust and ruin. No broadcasts, no response. Just the cold echo of the last message, still looping in Ava's ears. Arcanus Prime hung below them, bleeding light. From orbit, it looked like a shattered pearl, once vibrant, now veined with ash trails and glassed continents. Cities lay dark, oceans boiled. Entire hemispheres burned under the invisible boot of the Carith. Hegemony. They had arrived too late. We're detecting orbital debris fields, some human signature, some alien, said Lieutenant Vex from the tactical console. His voice was clinical, but Ava saw the tension in his jaw. Any survivors? She asked. Unknown. No life signs. On standard scan, but we're picking up interference. Carith jamming? Rogue said, leaning over the map. No, Vex replied. This is older. Planetary scale dampening field. Looks like they wanted Arcanus buried. Ava's eyes narrowed. She remembered the Carith way. Eradicate, rewrite, erase. They didn't just conquer, they purged memory. And the only thing more dangerous than a Carith armada was a Carith secret. Deploy recon pods, Ava ordered. Scan for bunkers, vaults, anything deep. Commander, Vex interrupted. We're not alone. The tactical map flared red. 6 enemy signatures uncloaked along the fleet's flank. Carith dreadwings, black as obsidian, shaped. Like razors in hunger. Silent. Deadly. They've been watching us, Rook said. No, Ava said grimly. They've been waiting. The Carith opened fire. Lances of violet plasma speared through the void, hammering into the Mistrals. Wake and tearing through the starboard wing of the Bellatrix. Hull alarm screamed. The bridge jolted sideways. Shields up, Rourke roared. Return fire, targeting vectors 2, 5, and 9. The Vindicators came alive with fury. Rail cannons and neutron beams howled through space. One Carith. Dreadwing exploded in a flash of white light, scattering burning alloy across the black. But for each they damaged, another closed in. They want to drive us into the gravity well, Ava said, reading their formation. They're hurting us, Vex added. Toward Arcanus. A trap within a ruin. Perfect. Break pattern, Ava ordered. Helix maneuver. Split the fleet. Make them choose. The ships twisted into a spiraling formation, drawing the Carith fire wide. In the chaos, a recon pod broke atmosphere and dove toward the planet's surface. Inside, a pair of scouts, Lieutenant Syra Kale and tech specialist Lorne Vexer, braced as the pod shuddered and plunged through the blackened clouds. Seeing surface ruins, gods, Syra muttered. Below, what remained of Arcanus's capital was a scorched grid of bones and charred towers. But in the center of the cratered city, beneath a collapsed temple of steel, a signal pinged faintly. Got something, Lorne said, voice tense. Human, deep signal. Not on any known bands. Is it the source of the Mayday? No. It's older. How old? Lorne stared at his scanner. Pre-Exodus. Syra's heart stilled. That made it over 300 years old, from before Earth fell, before the Ark fleets vanished, before the world Ava Roslin was born into. This isn't a rescue request, Syra whispered. It's a buried memory. Back in orbit, Ava watched as the Kareth Dreadwings were grouped. 3 of them had been destroyed, but the others held their formation. They weren't trying to win. They were delaying. That meant reinforcements were coming. Or worse, something below was more important than Ava realized. Send a ground team, Ava commanded. I want whatever's down there. If the Kareth wanted hidden, then we need it exposed. Ma'am, Rook said, lowering his voice. If we commit boots to the surface, we're exposed. The fleet can't hold 2 fronts forever. We're not here to survive. Ava said coldly, we're here to remember, to answer. That night, Syra's ground team breached the vault beneath Arcanus's ruins. Beneath collapsed monoliths and encoded shields, they found it. A sealed chamber with Earth's old crest. Faded, cracked, but intact. Inside, there were no weapons, no survivors. Just a stone chair and a data sarcophagus, ancient tech, humming weakly. Syra touched it. It opened. A projection burst to life. A woman in white armor, eyes like storm glass, standing tall and still. This is Commander Sarah Nix of Earth's 3rd Arc Fleet. If you're seeing this, then we failed, but we tried. The hologram glitched, flickered, then stabilized. To the ones who come after, remember what was taken, and make them pay. Above, Ava watched the incoming Kareth reinforcements break into system. A full fleet. 3 capital ships. Dozens of interceptors. The odds were no longer uneven. They were impossible. She felt the pull of dread in her chest. But Syra's voice crackled through the coms from the surface. Commander, we found something. It's not a weapon. It's a reckoning. Ava stared into the black, the ghosts of Earth rising behind her eyes. She clenched her fists. Then, she gave the order that would light the stars on fire. Prepare the fleet. We're not leaving. They didn't fear us because of our weapons. They feared us because we remember. The Kareth reinforcements moved like a tide. Black ships blotting out stars, tightening around the Vindicator fleet like a closing fist. It was suicide. To hold position, and Ava Roslin didn't flinch. Begin phase pyre, she said. Her officers turned. Vex's eyes widened. Rourke took a step forward. That plan was theoretical. It isn't anymore, Ava said. She pointed at the tactical table. They've forgotten what Earth was, what we were. So let's remind them. Below, Sierra and Lorne had sealed the ancient vault, carrying with them the data core extracted from the sarcophagus, a living relic encoded with everything Commander Sarah Nix had left behind. Mission logs, strategic protocols, and a final encrypted directive marked only, Ravenlock. As they lifted off the burning surface, something in the vault stirred. The projection flared one last time, a whisper chasing their ascent. And what we began. Back aboard the Starbound, Ava studied the decrypted files in silence. They painted a story darker than myth. The Orcs had not fled Earth during its fall. They had counterattacked. Hundreds of hidden strikes across Dominion systems. Biocode sabotage, sun flares, planetary cloaks. The 3rd Arc Fleet had become ghosts, waging silent war, rewriting the Kareth's own bloodlines with engineered resistance. The hegemony didn't destroy humanity. They buried it alive. And deep within that archive was Ravenlock, a viral signal crafted by Earth's final Codrites, capable of seizing and corrupting Dominion fleet networks through quantum-laced echoes of human neural patterns. It was the last act of Earth's mind. A mirror, a plague, a scream. I want it loaded, Ava said. Rourke looked pale. Commander, we don't even know if it'll work. If Ravenlock misfires, we could lose every system in our fleet. Then we lose, Ava said. But they don't win. The Kareth fleet closed in. Commander Arzes. Cavale of the hegemony's second ascendant strain watched from his throne bridge, a calcified temple of bone ivory, glowing with violet heat. He studied the primitive human formation through 1,000 data feeds. No evasive maneuvers. No retreat. They mean to martyr themselves, his adjutant hissed. Shall we reduce them? No, Arzes murmured. I want to know why they came. He leaned forward. Signal them. The comms lit up, a rare act. The Kareth rarely spoke. The bridge of the Spireborn filled with that voice. Serpentine, smooth, contemptuous. Human vessel. You bleed into sovereign space. You are obsolete. Return to your dead rock. Ava stepped forward. You remember Earth, she said calmly. I see it in your fear. Your planet burned. In whimpering silence. And yet, you still shiver when we rise. The comms cut. Silence followed. Then the enemy fleet accelerated. They're coming, Vex said, voice tight. Good, Ava whispered. Let them taste memory. The Vindicators split into tri-helix formation, channeling energy into the Vundas. Modified Gamma rays. The Ravenlock signal, buried within ancient Earth code, was activated. A pulse carried not by transmission, but by resonance. Not a command. A reflection. It searched for anything made in humanity's shadow. Captured tech, copied patterns, even echoes of old gnarled graphs the Kareth stole from human prisoners generations ago. And it found them. One Dreadwing's light sputtered. Then another. Then 3. Suddenly, in the heart of the hegemony fleet, a dozen ships spasmed, systems crashing, weapons misfiring. Engines lit at wrong trajectories. Firewalls buckled. Some turned on their own. Others simply froze. On board the Spireborn, cheers erupted. But Ava didn't smile. They'll adapt, she said. This won't last. We need to act while the chaos holds. Rourke leaned in. We still can't defeat them head-on. Not yet, Ava said. She activated her command seal and sent a fleet-wide burst. To all ships, split formation. Engage only defensive patterns. We're not here to win this battle. Rourke stared. Then, what are we doing? Ava looked at the stars, at Arcanus fading behind them. We're lighting a signal. Throughout fringe systems, black box probes linked to old human colonies began to stir. Buried deep in asteroid belts, under glassed moons, in forgotten bunkers, Ravenlock encoded signals pinned to life. Not a call for help. A call to rise. On Tindari 4, old resistance cells long thought extinct received the signal and burned their flags back into existence. On Dareth's Maw, deep within the ruins of a failed terraformer, a cryosleeper opened his eyes after 120 years, with vengeance preloaded in his veins. The flame that had died was now wildfire. Earth was not a place. It was an answer. The Vindicator fleet retreated through a sunless corridor, cloaked by Ravenlock's fading pulse. They had lost 3 ships. Dozens dead. But 100 worlds had just heard their scream. And Ava knew something the Kareth never would. They didn't need to win every battle. They just needed to make sure Earth's name burned its way through every Kareth star map from now until time died. That night, Ava stood alone beneath the viewport. Rourke approached, quiet. You risked everything, he said. For a message. Ava nodded, because they forgot who we were. And now? She turned. Her eyes were glass, full of fire. Now they remember. The Kareth didn't just retaliate. They declared extinction. Word of Arcanus spread faster than light. Across shattered colonies and hidden archives, humans whispered the unthinkable. Earth had answered. And the Kareth, who had ruled the galaxy through silence, now screamed. They didn't understand mercy. They only understood fear. And fear made them violent. The retaliation came like a burning storm. Within 6 days, the Kareth launched purge strikes on 28 fringe. Settlements suspected of harboring descendants of Earth. Orbital bombardments. Genetic cleansing. Cultural erasure. Monuments shattered. Libraries atomized. Entire bloodlines nullified from stellar records. It wasn't conquest anymore. It was vengeance. And the galaxy watched, silent, afraid, complicit. On the Spireborn, Ava Roslin stood in the aftermath of a broken transmission from the colony of Faro's Reach, a haven once thought safe under the shield of a neutral trade charter. She watched the boy cry into a smudged hull recorder, whispering, "We remembered Earth. Why did they kill us for it?" The image dissolved into static. Ava didn't speak for a long time. Then she turned, her voice like steel dragging against stone. "Every Kareth fleet that enters our range burns." 3 weeks later, the Vindicators had transformed from a relic fleet into a flame of retribution. With the Ravenlock signal spreading across sympathetic systems, humans were rising again. Not with governments or declarations, but with fury. They struck from asteroid belts and orbital mines. From derelict transport ships turned into mobile bombs. From ancient defense stations hacked into fire traps. Ava's fleet became the spearhead. But with every victory came a cost. On Velka Station, a listening post holding encrypted copies of Ravenlock, Rourke led a defensive stand that held back a Kareth incursion, but lost over 100 lives. His second, Colin Voss, was found vaporized beside the main relay hand, still gripping the trigger that saved them. Rourke never spoke of it. He only bled. Ava sat in her private quarters, playing the old Earth hymn her mother used to hum in the dark, a sound without lyrics, just tones, sad and rising. Rourke entered, limping from a plasma wound barely sealed. "You're burning the fleet too." "Fast," he said, sitting heavily. "So are they." He nodded slowly. "But they have worlds. We have ghosts." Ava looked at him. "Ghosts are the only thing they can't kill." A silence passed. Then she opened her palm, revealing a shard of obsidian, a piece of Kareth biotech harvested from the wreckage of the Dreadwing at Arcanus. "They adapt," she said. "So must we." In the fleet's hidden forge ship, engineers and salvaged AI cores worked day and night to reverse engineer the shard. It held reactive code, instinctive, semi-alive algorithms that controlled Kareth battlefield awareness. To a Kareth ship, the shard was a sixth sense. It could feel fear, track loyalty, even detect traitorous thought patterns. But now, it was being rewritten. Mila Voss, chief of systems and a former codebreaker from the Mars Descent faction, led the operation. "We're turning their instincts against them," she said to Ava. "It's not perfect. But if we splice this into our decoys, we can fake betrayal in their own ranks." "Let's weaponize paranoia," Ava said. Operation Pale Wake was born. The Vindicators launched a stealth offensive against a Kareth Ford node near the nebula world of Zancor. Instead of attacking directly, they seeded the shard decoys into the command fleet, broadcasting false signals of rebellion, insubordination, and heretical neural drift. The effect was immediate. Kareth commanders, conditioned for absolute obedience, began purging their own. Within hours, the entire fleet imploded, ships attacking one another, captains executed by their adjutants. The node burned without a single human shot fired. It was the first psychological defeat the Kareth had suffered in recorded galactic history, but the cost was felt elsewhere. 2 days later, the Kareth executed a coordinated assault on Refuge Omega, one of the few remaining deep space sanctuaries for human orphans and refugees. They didn't fire weapons. They vented atmosphere, locked escape routes, and played Earth hymns over the comms as they did it. A message. Ava received the report in silence. She walked alone into the war deck and stared at the tactical map as if it were the face of a god. "I thought if we reminded the galaxy who we were," she whispered, they would rise with us. Rourke stepped beside her. Some are, but most are watching, waiting to see who wins. And if we lose, then they forget us again. Ava turned to him, eyes red but dry. Then let's become unforgettable. Later that night, Mila brought her a decoded message, intercepted from Kareth command lines. It wasn't tactical data. It was a name, Nyx. They'd found traces of the Ravenlock signature, and they knew its origin point. They were looking for Sarah Nyx, for her memory, for the echo that Ava now carried. "Commander," Mila said, "they're coming for the core." Ava nodded. "Let them. But when they arrive..." She placed her hand over her heart, where the memory of Earth still beat. "We make them remember what it cost to silence us the first time." Earth's last secret wasn't a weapon. It was a memory. Too painful to forget, too powerful to kill. The Kareth hegemony had turned its eye. They no longer saw the Vindicator fleet as a nuisance. They saw it for what it truly was. The bleeding heart of a forgotten species that refused to die. And so they sent the Reclaimer. The Reclaimer of Truth, Kareth's most feared Judicator dreadnought, broke from slipspace in a shockwave of dark fire and fractured gravity. It was not a ship. It was an extinction sentence. 4 kilometers long, bone-veined hull. A living AI fed on erased cultures. It had crushed the Aurelian Republic in 2 days, silenced the echo choir of Zinthos in 6 hours. Now it came for Avar-Roslin. And for Ravenlock. Aboard the Spireborn, Ava watched its arrival without blinking. "Status of the fleet?" she asked. "Scattered," Milovas said. "We're still regrouping after the Zancor operation. 4 ships too damaged to fly. Half the crew on emergency rotations." "They'll be here in hours," Rourke said. "If the Reclaimer hits us now, it will not," Ava cut in. "Not here." She turned to the star map, then pointed far beyond the charted grid. "We're moving. We make our stand at Echo Redoubt." Silence fell. Rourke frowned. "Echo Redoubt? That place hasn't been touched since the Ark days. It's cursed." "It's sacred," Ava said. "And it holds the last piece of Ravenlock." Echo Redoubt was not on any modern map. Built in Earth's final century of relevance, it had once been a failsafe, an exile node in the empty reach, a vault of knowledge and sorrow. After the Exodus, its coordinates were wiped from memory. Only the core passed down from Commander Sarah Nyx still held its path. They reached it 17 hours later. Floating in a dead nebula, surrounded by silence, Echo Redoubt appeared. A hollowed-out moon, armor-locked in quantum ice. The fleet docked in reverent silence. It was like entering a tomb. But inside, the walls still breathed. The core of Echo Redoubt pulsed with pre-Exodus energy. And in its heart, a sphere of pure light suspended in stasis, Ravenlock's seed, not the virus Ava had unleashed. This was its soul. "We always assumed Ravenlock was a weapon," Mila whispered. "But this is something else." "It's not code," Lorne added. "It's memory." The sphere responded to Ava's presence, glowing brighter as she approached. Lines of ancient human text streamed across the vault walls. Names, coordinates, last words. "Don't forget. US. Make it mean something." We were more than what they took. Tears rimmed Ava's eyes. She looked around. "This is Earth." "Then we need to move it," Rourke said. "Before the Reclaimer gets here." But the vault's failsafes resisted. "The sphere doesn't want to be moved," Mila said. "It wants to be used. Here." Ava stood before it. "What are?" "You?" she whispered. The sphere pulsed. A voice spoke, not aloud, but inside her bones. "I am every cry unanswered. Every hand left reaching. I am Earth's last story." And then Ava understood. The true Ravenlock was never a weapon. It was remembrance. A signal not to destroy, but to awaken. to remind every buried human mind, every hybrid strain corrupted by Kirith biocoding, every stolen colony child raised to forget their heritage, who they truly were. The Reclaimer wasn't coming to destroy Ravenlock. It was coming to stop truth from spreading. "Begin the upload," Ava commanded. "We don't have time," Mela protested. "The Reclaimer. I'll hold them off," Ava said. "Alone. You're not serious. Give me one ship. The rest stay here and finish the sequence." She turned to Rourke, whose jaw had gone tight. "You always knew this would happen," she said gently. "I thought it would be me." He replied, "It almost was." Hours later, the Ash Requiem, one of the last surviving pre-Exodus corvettes, drifted into the void. Its hull had been patched too many times to count. Its weapons were outdated, its shields ragged. Inside, Ava Roslin sat in the command throne, facing the Reclaimer. As the Judicator Dreadnought closed the distance, Ava opened the channel. "This is Ava Roslin of Earth." The reply came not in words, but in the shriek of decaying stars. Still, she smiled. "You wanted to kill us before we remembered. But you're too late." From the edge of the redoubt, the light of the sphere began to bloom, radiating through ancient relay satellites that hadn't activated in centuries. Memory surged. Across Kareth-controlled systems, humans twitched in their sleep. Slaves paused mid-step. Soldiers hesitated at their posts. And somewhere in the dark, people remembered who they were. The Reclaimer charged its main weapon, a planet killer. Ava sat still. "Do it," she whispered. The blast split the Ash Requiem apart, atom by atom. But in that final second, she completed her transmission. The full seed of Ravenlock sang through the stars. In Echo Redoubt, Rourke fell to his knees as the vault doors collapsed from the shockwave. Mela's voice cracked over the comms. "The Reclaimer is gone." "Ava, she's gone." "No," Rourke said, voice shaking. "She's everywhere now." The Reclaimer's death sent tremors through the stars. Not from its destruction, but from what it failed to prevent. The Ravenlock seed, fully awakened through Ava Roslin's sacrifice, did not stop at Echo Redoubt. It surged across Forgotten. Nodes wormed its way into silenced frequencies and resurrected entire lost histories. The dead spoke. Old Earth languages flickered in reborn code. Across 1,000 stolen colonies, humanity began to remember itself. But the Kareth did not fall back. They doubled down. Entire fleets mobilized from their core systems. The Dominion named a new protocol. Ashpath Directive, Scorched Star Tactics meant not to conquer, but to annihilate. Their goal, to reach Echo Redoubt and destroy the Ravenlock transmission before it could awaken more minds. To kill Ava Roslin's Echo, even if she was already gone. Rourke stood in the ruined vault of the Redoubt, eyes hollow, voice raw. "She gave everything," he said quietly. "And they're still coming." "They want her silence more than her death," Milovus replied. "Because what she became, it's louder than any war. Then we have to be louder." In Ava's absence, the chain of command defaulted to Rourke. But there was no ceremony, no speech, just long hours of grim decisions and unbearable timing. The fleet was broken, 27 ships, many barely flying. Some with no shields, some with skeletal crews. The core still pulsed in Echo Redoubt, but its reach was finite. "If we stay here," Mila warned, "we're cornered." "If we run," Rourke countered, "they kill every colony that's still listening." He stared at the wall, at the scorched plaque that once read, "Echo Redoubt for when Earth is nitrogen monoxide more." He touched it. No more running. The last stand began with shadows. The Kareth arrived as black spires on the edge of the nebula, refracted by stellar dust like nightmare statues. The exarchs of silence, the Blade Choir, and the 5th Judicator host, all converging. 3,000 ships against 27. It wasn't war. It was sacrifice. Rourke's voice rang through the fleet. We don't hold this line to win. We hold it so the voice behind us keeps rising. We hold it because they believe we won't. And we hold it because she did. One by one, the captains responded. Bellatrix standing by. Stray Ember ready. Gideon's Wake armed and proud. Thessalonica's vow will not fall again. Even the oldest hulls, rusted freighters, scavenged cutters, orphaned transports, aligned into formation. They weren't a fleet anymore. They were a wall. And behind that wall pulsed the echo of Earth's last truth. The battle came like fire. Kareth Dreadwings opened first, their plasma lances spearing through the outer ships. Bellatrix exploded in a silent bloom of red. But before it died, it took 5 enemies with it, ramming headlong into their command pod, burning bright with final defiance. Collapse lanes B through D, Rourke commanded. Bait them inward. The Vindicators bent their line, drawing Kareth's ships into crossfire. Missiles roared. Emp waves thudded. Hulls shattered. But it was never enough. On the Stray Ember, Milovas rerouted power from life support to Ravenlock's secondary relay. It's not about keeping the core safe anymore, she said to her crew. It's about keeping it heard. They embedded fragments of Ravenlock in every transmission. Weapon locks, distress calls, even death signals. The Kareth systems began to fracture, not from damage, but from truth. Their ships hesitated. Some fired late. Others turned and rammed their own. We remember who we were. You cannot erase memory with fire. Earth rises. Still, the line began to fail. The Gideon's Wake fell with all hands. The Wraith Concord detonated mid-turn. Thessalonica's vow, Ava's namesake, took a Judicator flagship down in a suicide burn. Its final transmission: we are not your silence. We are your shame. With only 6 ships remaining, Rourke knew the end had come. But that was the plan. Time, he asked. Ravenlock is seated in 87% of open systems, Mila answered. That's enough. The core's light won't go. Out now. He nodded once. Good. She hesitated. You sure you want to do this? He looked out the viewport at the Kareth horde pressing inward like a tidal wave. Ava lit the fire, he said. But someone has to carry it into their throat. He activated the fail-safes. The remaining ships began to cluster, not to flee, but to dive. The fleet twisted into a singular vector, a spear of vengeance aimed at the heart of the Kareth. Advance. They weren't firing anymore. They were charging. Broadcast the final code, Rourke said. What should I name the sequence? He smiled, the first time since Ava died. Call it Roslin's Echo. The last of Earth's fleet surged forward like the closing of a fist, not to survive, but to scar the stars so deeply that even the Kareth would bleed when they looked upon them. And from the shattered edges of the galaxy, something stirred. Colonies long hidden began to rise. Ancient Earthborn A's powered up in bunkers centuries old. And in the places where children slept under the ashes of lost worlds, they began to dream of blue skies. In the end, they didn't fall because we were stronger. They fell because we were willing to burn for each other. The Vindicator fleet was gone. Roslin's Echo had detonated at the center of the Kareth formation, rupturing dozens of Dreadwings, splintering command vessels, and punching a scar through the enemy's front line. But it was not the blast that shook the galaxy. It was what followed. Across 1,000 worlds, Ravenlock had taken root, and now it bloomed. They came from shadows and silence. Old rebel clans from Dareth Maw, the frost-hardened nomads of Elira Prime, even broken sleeper cells from the long-forgotten Soul Choir awoke, memories reloaded into cloned bodies long thought extinct. Ships unregistered, colors mismatched, engines humming with the rhythm of vengeance. They called it the Ash Fleet. And it was everything the Careth couldn't kill. At the edge of the system, as the fires of Echo Redoubt still smoldered, the Careth regrouped. Judicator Threx Velsine stood aboard his command throne, mandibles trembling with rage, as report after report confirmed the impossible. Human colonies uniting, sectors falling into rebellion, Careth databanks collapsing under viral corruption, fleet captains defecting because they remembered their mothers speaking Earth lullabies in secret. He turned to his war priest and hissed, "They were extinct." "No," the priest whispered, staring into the abyss. "They were sleeping." From the broken rim of space, the Ash Fleet dropped into real space like the vengeance of old gods. Gutterglass, Ire Thorn, Soul Requiem, Banshee of Laura, Core's Edge, Children of Fire, vessels cobbled together from generations of resistance. And leading them, a black-keeled dreadnought with no official designation, painted in matte silence, bearing no signal. But across its hull, in a language older than this war, glowed a single word, Ava. Rock stood at its helm, alive. Scarred. Burned, but alive. He'd survived Roslin's Echo not by design, but by fate, thrown into an emergency escape pod milliseconds before the detonation by Milo Voss. "You idiot." She had wept when they found each other. Now she stood at his side again, gauntlet fused to her forearm, eyes burning with the light of Ravenlock's fire. They weren't commanders now. They were carriers of Earth's last will. The Careth unleashed everything. Dozens of fleets, world-killer beams, bioplague drops, neural warfare storms. It didn't matter. The Ash Fleet charged. No shields, no orders, no retreat. Each ship a burning psalm. Each crew a prayer turned into fire. They fired rail lances packed with memory strands, missiles laced with earth soil, and torpedoes that sang Ava Roslin's voice as they flew. In the battle's heart, Rourke gave the final order. Open the last gate. It had been Eva's last encrypted directive, a failsafe locked behind her Deanna signature, embedded within Ravenlock's core. It wasn't a weapon. It was a truth. The last gate was a broadcast one that cut through the Careth's interlink, searing into every ship, every soldier, every drone that had ever touched human flesh or stolen human code. And in that moment, they remembered us. Careth ships stuttered. Pilots screamed. Tactical A is crashed mid-command. They saw Earth as we had seen it. The color of sunsets, the heat of oceans, the laughter of children before the sky burned. They felt guilt. They felt grief. And it broke them. Judicator Threx fired every weapon at the Ava. It surged forward anyway, until Rourke activated the drive spike and rammed it straight into the Judicator's throne. On impact, the Ava detonated, its entire memory core, and with it, the Careth High Judicator. The sky went white. When the light faded, half the Careth fleet was drifting. Not dead, not defeated, just staring into space paralyzed. They had seen what they tried to erase, and they could not unsee it. Across the galaxy, rebellion surged. Careth governors fled. Sympathizer worlds declared independence. Colonies once silent now broadcast Earth's old languages as a sign of resistance. Ravenlock wasn't just a virus. It had become a resonance. A story that could no longer be untold. On a quiet moon near Zarathai, a human girl born into servitude picked up a shard of old metal. Etched in it was Ava's name. She didn't know what it meant. But when she held it, she wept, and then she stood. We weren't supposed to win. We weren't meant to survive. But in that moment, when the stars echoed our memory, we became something worse than feared. We became unforgettable. No one heard Earth scream when it fell. But when we rose, the stars went silent to listen. 3 months after the Ava ruptured the Kareth Judicator fleet at Echo Redoubt, the galaxy changed forever. The war didn't end that day, but something older, darker, far more permanent did. The illusion of Kareth invincibility shattered. In the ruins of their command network, cracks spread like fractures in ancient bone. Entire sectors seceded overnight. Whole dynasties within the hegemony turned on each other, whispering of guilt, of memory echoes still infecting their thought nets. Their own war priests began speaking in Earth tongues. Ravenlock had done more than burn their systems. It had rewritten their soul. Rourke lived barely. He awoke weeks later aboard the Soul Requiem, skin grafted with silver filament, eyes half artificial, lungs fused with battlefield gel. Mala sat beside him, gauntlets still sparking from neural overstress. "I thought you died," he rasped. "You did," she said with a faint smile. "But Earth doesn't die easy, remember?" He tried to laugh. It came out like ash. Across human-controlled space, signals flared, not just of survival, but of rebirth. The Ash Fleet splintered and seeded the stars, forming new protectorates, alliances, memory holds. Not empires, not governments, but lighthouses, beacons, carrying Earth's story. On Lura's cradle, Ava Roslin's name was carved into the cliffs in letters large enough to be seen from orbit. On Dareth Maul, her voice became part of their oath. "We were not your silence. We were your shame. And now, we are your mirror." Rourke refused a mantle of leadership. He didn't want a throne. He wanted peace. He took the gutter glass, an old rust bucket still carrying Ava's first mission logs, and disappeared into the outer rim, delivering Ravenlock seeds to colonies still asleep. Some say he was seen on Hesper Prime, teaching orphans how to fly. Others say he died in a final ambush, smiling as the stars burned. But most believe something else, that he's still out there, keeping the fire lit. The Kareth never fully fell. But they learned fear. They learned memory. And that was enough. Their new doctrine, the Remembrance Accord, forbade the silencing of any species, not out of mercy, out of caution. They no longer spoke the name Earth aloud. They simply called us the flame that returned. And what of Earth? Still dead, still ashes, but its children lived. One day, near the ruins of Old Sol, a scavenger ship from a free human convoy found something drifting in orbit around Earth's remains, deep inside the debris of the orbital graveyard. A satellite, still active, ancient, pre-Exodus, miraculously preserved. Inside, they found the original transmission that Ava Roslin had carried in her blood, the original Ravenlock. Not a virus, not even code. It was a message, spoken by a trembling voice centuries ago, crackled, warped, full of grief, but unmistakably human. To whoever hears this, we didn't die screaming. We died believing. And if you find this, remember what we were. Fight like we did. Burn if you must. But never let them forget our name. The scavengers wept. Then they broadcast it. Within hours, it echoed through 1,000 systems. Within days, every former colony, human or not, had heard it. And within weeks, across starfields once silent, voices began to speak one name again, not with pity, not with fear, but with reverence. Earth. In time, statues rose not of kings, but of Ava Roslin, standing tall, eyes fixed toward stars she'd never see again. Her memorial wasn't made of stone or steel. It was made of stories. Each time a child was taught what it meant to be human. Each time a survivor stood up, wounded and unbroken. Each time a voice refused to be silenced, Earth lived again. And somewhere, drifting in the silence between galaxies, the last core of Ravenlock pulsed once, faint, golden, not calling for help, but listening, for the next voice, for the next fire, for the next broken people who would need to remember what it meant to rise. Because in the end, we were broken. But we were never beaten. And now, the stars carry our name.